Obviously the one who didn't want to be the emperor the most out of all. But he awakened an unprecedented imperial aura. And all I did was just unpleasant. This is a pre-designed fate. Not so long ago, I burned it out with a fire, an ancestral hall built for the Queen Mother. The brilliant firelight instantly shocked everyone present. I swept them calmly. I have something to say to you. Do you know that it is coming? There are so many rich people in the city. So much food. Why were you still so poor before? I can't afford to eat. When the disaster victims. Because you dare to ask only them. Ask them to give them food that they can't eat. Change a little bit of force. They can't spend enough money. Slightly unsatisfactory. You're what they call thieves. The reason why they dare to do this to you. Precisely because they are sure. You are a bunch of trash who don't dare to lift the table. Because if you want to lift the table, you have to fight with your life. Look at yourselves. Except for this cheap life. What else do you guys have? If silence continues, that's what you lose in the end. Secret outside the borders. Wu Dongshuan's eyes widened when he saw this scene. This is actually an imperial halo. I shouted passionately at them. Go to battle. Go and pick up your weapons. Listen to me. The eyes of the refugees were full of aggression. The belief in taking up arms to resist has also become stronger. We're going to rebel. Let's not let anyone take care of it anymore. We're going to take up arms. Defend your dignity as a human being. I shouted. So what are you waiting for to take back what belongs to you? For a moment, a heavy, low roar erupted in the crowd. Get her stuff back. The barefoot are not afraid to wear shoes. Mess with them. Meanwhile, the guard reminded, if it's a new word that's on fire. If he turned his head and roared loudly at the guards. Could it be that you were still angry when you kill the official history? Now, not only does it make less money, it bothered me too. I can't spare you. Then he shouted to the soldiers behind the city walls. What are you still grinding? Now go and get me out of the city to suppress the bandits. With his order, the gates of the city gates also slowly opened. But the scene in front of him made the soldiers' hearts tremble. In front of them were eyes full of aggression and greed. For a while, the war was on the verge of breaking out. The men and horses of both sides were also at war together. If it was shouted from the castle tower, "Are you crazy? Gather a crowd to rebel. Aren't you afraid that the court will condemn the death penalty?" Suddenly, the sound of yes stopped abruptly. Everywhere he looked, I was found standing unscathed among the refugees. If it was a burst of screams from 7 people. Why aren't you dead yet? Soon he forced himself to calm down. It's just a victim who has eaten a few full meals. Nothing to worry about. Just kill him. So he immediately ordered the archers. But soon he didn't finish his words. It's like a stem in the throat. Behind him stood the wolf-like victims, and the armies that made him proud. It has been completely destroyed at this moment, facing hordes of victims. If it's stiff, just for a moment, he immediately made up his mind. Then he shouted downstairs in the city, "Thou rebel gathers a crowd to rebel. Also deceive good civilians. You are an official of the court. Myths confuse the public. Embezzlement of wages. Exploit good people. You can't believe it. Such villains." After all that said, he looked nervously at the victims behind him. "Do you believe me?" But then there was a sound of footsteps. See the guy striding in? If it's a look of horror. Haven't you been shot? Soon there was a scream. Screams rang out from the towers. If it is lifted high by a group of victims, then they threw him high from the tower. Li Tianyuan's face was full of shock. All my life, I was obsessed with power and calculation. Get in the game. Victory Day half-son. No different from this eunuch. But even if you are calling for wind and rain in the game, it's also in the game after all. My pattern is only in the square inch of the imperial court, and the realm of flipping the chessboard is outside heaven and earth. and the pretentious chess pieces on the chessboard can only end up falling. After all, the identity of the emperor was still discovered by the thief. But Wu Dongxian, who knew about my situation, not only did he kill me, instead, he chose to fully support me to do a good job on the throne. Not so long ago, I didn't pass the imperial test. Teleported. A mechanical voice followed. Grill failed. After hearing this result, my heart shuddered. The scene that had just been in the trial came to mind. Just when the trial was about to end successfully, I suddenly saw Xiao Wu fighting wildly in the crowd. I couldn't help but yell at him. The food and wages have already arrived. It's over. Don't go again. You're going to die. Think of Xiaoyu and them. You're dead. Who takes care of those orphans? There are still a long days to come. Only by surviving can you have a chance. Here's Xiaoyu's name. Xiao Wu's body stiffened. Turned to look at me. That's when it happened. Soldiers seized the opportunity. A knife slashed at Xiao Wu's back. At the last moment, I threw Xiao Wu out. But I wasn't so lucky. He was beheaded with a knife. Come back to your senses. I clutched my neck in horror. How could I do such a thing? Until I realized that it was just a vision. I couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Luckily, I'm still alive. But I finally lost once. Suddenly, the sound of silence exploded in my ears. Also ready to be in a daze until when? Look at his naked eyes. I chuckled in my heart. I almost forgot to say yes. This woman is going to complete the test of trial. I smiled at her with some embarrassment. It was an accident just now. However, the imaginary accusations did not appear. In exchange, it was Wu Dongxuan's appreciation. Although you did not pass the test. But I love your performance. I looked at this woman's eldest sister with a dumbfounded expression. You're not going to have a brain pump, are you? Suddenly I reacted. Everything I did just now was seen by them. Wu Dongxian put his arm around my head. Your choice is very much to my liking. It's just a little conservative. If I had done that, I would have killed that eunuch at the first opportunity. Consider your background, though. Actually, it was quite unexpected. Then he blew softly into my ear. Isn't it? My heart shook violently during the slaughter night. When did he find out who I am? And at the moment when my identity was revealed. Xiao then lifted his double knife and killed him. However, his attack was easily stopped by Wu Dongxian. Hold your horses. If I really want to kill you. It's been done a long time ago. I gasped for breath with difficulty. Yelled. How the hell did you find out? Could it be that my youth and handsomeness have exposed myself? Wu Dongxian smiled. The story you made up at the beginning was outrageous. It made me believe a little. After all, the story has logic. Reality is not logical. However, Hu Qianjun will be disheartened because of the betrayal of his heir. It's very suspicious. Li Tianyuan snorted fiercely. Was it my problem? I have checked all the important ministers of the former country. And just now I tested your reaction to Lu Ming. Reveals your identity. At least Tu Qianjun wouldn't show that expression. After speaking, Wu Dongxian looked at me again. It is indeed my wish to destroy the country of money. But if we can really achieve great harmony, that's a joy for all. But that's a hard thing to do. So if you drain your national power in the process, in the end, everyone rebelled and left. If you die and the country is destroyed, I'm happy to see it happen. I didn't lose anything anyway. I'm going to hold it down. Rebel, I won't bother you for the time being. But if you deviate from my expectations, I'll gouge out your heart and drug it. Hear, hear. My heart grew even more fearful. Has this woman always been so fierce? After all that said, she waved her hand at me. After seeing Wu Dongxian leave, Li Tianyuan ran over nonstop. His Majesty is guilty. I was just about to go berserk, only to see the message above his head. A sea change has taken place. The original 99 pounds of anti-bone martial arts were not left at all. Giving him a slave bone would reduce loyalty. I felt as bad as. I have to say it with a clear conscience. What a crime I Ching has. Qian was ashamed, obsessed with power tricks, failed to take the big picture into account. His Majesty's performance along the way made Qian fall to the ground. A lifetime of inexhaustible use. I quickly helped her up. Where? Adults should not forget their original intentions. Don't be influenced by me. Be brave and be yourself. Then Aina tugged at the corner of my coat. It's pretty impressive. Fellow, I looked at this femme fatale. Exclaimed, if there's a fart, let it go. Don't play these for Lao Tzu. I just admire you. I thought you were just a scrap. It's all a matter of luck that I've survived until now. But look at your performance. I didn't expect that I still have some ability. I looked at him with some disgust. Are you Yin and Yang me? How could it be? If only you played the standard ending. I'm going to look down on you. It is necessary not to play according to the routine. I just like it. This is the only pastime for our reincarnateds. Isn't it? I patted my forehead a little speechlessly. Whatever you want. But she hugged me. Didn't get the dragon vein. Go back empty-handed. Not so good. Why don't you take me with you? I yelled at her to fuck off. Lao Tzu hates women the most. Are you sure? And I'm a reincarnated person. The most important thing is that there are two reincarnated. Then there will be a third. The fourth. We're all grasshoppers on the same rope. What if the other reincarnated ones are your enemies? In competition with other reincarnations. You don't feel like a fellow. Is it more valuable to form an alliance than these ancients? Unexpectedly became the greatest emperor in history. Not only in the next 100 years, it has also become the only god of faith in everyone's heart. And it all starts with the imperial trial. I died under the enemy's knife for helping Xiao Wu block the knife. But despite how completely I failed, unexpectedly got Aina's approval. Thus came up with the idea of forming an alliance with me. Look at the purple glow in Aina's eyes. I threw him out with an over-the-shoulder throw. You damn woman. You just used your abilities on me again. Seeing their own master being treated like this. Aya rushed at me with a burst of shots. Ready to shreds my head, Aina suddenly reached out and stopped him. Don't he'll think about it. He just needs time. As he said, I do think about it. After all, Li Tianyuan is completely useless. I need a capable man to fill the void in the plan for the defeated country. So I made a look of embarrassment. I do have the will, but I have something to remind you of. Aina was a little surprised. What's up? If you're going to backstab me, then you'd better take everything from me, including my throne. Otherwise, I'll make your life worse than death. After leaving the place of trial in the evening, I also had a good night's sleep for the first time. But at this moment, the system on my wrist started to sparkle. The next moment, I suddenly appeared at a high altitude. It didn't take long for me to recognize this, as if it were a place of trial. But isn't the trial over? Suddenly, I was shocked by the huge scene below. I saw a funeral procession composed of refugees, heading in one direction. I was a little shocked. Why after the trial is over? The world is still running. I haven't waited for an answer yet. I saw my body being lifted by the crowd. Is this my funeral? After burying me, the victims raise their glasses. Kiki spills wine in a bowl in front of the grave. I touch the tombstone in disbelief. If the world were still running, doesn't that mean that a person named Big Five is really dead? And he died because of me. That's when it happened. Heavy footsteps rang in my ears. See someone coming. I couldn't help but feel terrified. The person who came was actually Dao. I couldn't help but exclaim, Dao, you're still alive? However, the words that appeared in his head shocked me even more. Roughly the founding Emperor Takashi. Why does he have a data panel? Is this world real? The sound of the system rings in my ears. The Emperor of Great Wisdom, influenced by you, became the end of the old dynasty. After you die, they made their way north, set off a wave of revolt. On the way, there was a lot of response. The team continues to grow. After several years of war, The samurai brothers eventually won the war. And inspired by you, valuing commerce has brought peace to this world for hundreds of years. There is a magnificent ancestral hall in the roughly capital. There are no gods in it. The ancients, princes, and generals. It is a former official whose name is unknown. He was revered for his business wisdom, a symbol of courage and defiance. It was regarded as the founding ancestor of the country by the Daji Emperor. Suddenly, two figures came to mind. These two guys actually made me look like Lady Liberty. Putting it in love with the exam, success created a general opportunity for the establishment of the Wu brothers. As a result, the sentence was changed to a superior host. Pass the Dragon Vein trial and add 20,000 points to the national power points. It currently has 30,900 national power points. I looked at the system with some dumbfounded. What a thing. But he smiled and congratulated me. Congratulations. Uncle, what is the relationship between the Dragon Vein and you? Do you want me to worship the country? You want to escort me? However, it was the cold 8 big words that responded to me. Insufficient permissions. No comment. But congratulations to the host for unlocking the breaching lottery system. I'm a little confused. Even asked what the lottery system literally meant. Lottery can be used to draw related items. It's a pity that each draw costs 500 points. As soon as this remark came out, I was instantly excited. And this good thing, then I just have to keep drawing lotteries. The system rejects my idea. And tell me, you can only draw 10 times at a time, and no further draws are allowed until the props run out. That being said, but I'm still in high spirits. After all, there is a way to consume the fortunes of the country. Immediately, I came straight to a 10 in a row. With the prompt sounded, my national strength is reduced by 5,000. The remaining 25,900. Then a blinding light appeared from my hand. Awakening pill. Increase the experience of reviewing the folds. Cinnabar silk print. A must-have for the imperial study. It is better to use it with heirloom jade seals. Li Ji colorful generation of Cleopatra's Boudoir Secret Room emotional best-selling comics. See this pile of garbage in front of you? I can't help but be a little disappointed. Are these things really useful for the defeated country? Just when I thought about spending points like that. In front of him, another stack of books appeared. The moment I saw the cover, I couldn't help but be shocked. How can there be such a thing? 100 pieces of the best treasures were selected to worship the country. What could be obtained are all artifacts that are conducive to the development of the country. Just when I thought I was fooled again, but I saw something incredible in it. It is actually a book of dual-use talents. I picked up the book and looked at it curiously. Unexpectedly, I was deeply attracted by the first sentence of the book. The must-read list for travelers tells about planting, agriculture, industrial construction, medical emergency, civil engineering of these infrastructures. What's even more terrifying, he even taught me how to build airplanes. I finally couldn't hold back when I saw this. Drop the book out. It is said that it is a lottery for worshiping the country. Why is there such a thing? Look at labor and management not tearing you to shreds. But as I ran out of strength to feed, I found the book as tough as steel. That's when it happened. Li Tianyuan's exclamation exploded in my ears. Your Majesty saw that his face was frightened. Your Majesty went crazy in his dreams. I reached out and pushed his old face away. Nothing. When I pushed it away, Li Tianyuan saw the book in my hand through his fingers. Your Majesty, the paper in your hand is arranged in a curious way. Can you borrow the old minister to see? I smiled and handed him the book. You don't necessarily understand what this book is about. A few minutes later, Li Tianyuan screamed, there is such a divine book in this world. I thought that everything in the world was controlled by power. But I didn't expect this kind of miscellaneous science to have an amazing side. I said with some suspicion, you really get it? Li Tianyuan looked back at me with a straight face. Completely incomprehensible. I just felt a pang of discomfort in my heart. You don't understand your name is chicken feathers. But it was also a relief to me. If he really let him see it, the national strength points are bound to rise a lot. That's when it happened. Zhuge came over timidly. Can you show me? After a while, Asha's face turned excited. Interesting. This is called an electrical thing. If it is combined with my magic. I still looked at him, speechlessly. It's like you can read it. Asha's eyes never leave the book. There are some places that I don't understand. But if you can give me more time, if you combine the magic words, maybe it can be done. Li Tianyuan laughed. Worthy of my adopted daughter. Talented. Hear, hear. I couldn't help but burst into tears. The content of this book requires a lot of scientific knowledge. Good, no good. Your skill book is completely crooked. Asha didn't care. He also asked me if I could take the book back. I wiped my tears from my eyes. He laughed. Don't say what about taking it away and sending it to you. But wait until I'm done. Again, I felt the slightest bit wrong. Then I looked back at Silly. But I saw him as if he was grasping a peerless treasure. Dead reading the book. See here. I looked at Li Tianyuan with some uncertainty. I mean, if I let the money country cease to exist, what would you think? Li Tianyuan was stunned. Didn't expect me to say that. But he quickly smiled with relief. There is no such thing as an immortal kingdom. The former country is also good. Jingua is no more. In the end, all that was left was a few thin pages in the history books. I was a little surprised. He was able to think so. Couldn't help but praise him. Who knew that Li Tianyuan was convinced? Wetchen firmly believes that no matter what happens in the future, at least your majesty can do something amazing that is very different from ordinary emperors. And the old minister will definitely have the honor to witness that moment. Witness the pinnacle of the former country. I don't have the slightest doubt about it. Hearing this, an inexplicable feeling of joy appeared in my heart. Was he so hot-blooded before? I have been misled by the point system before. I want to bring the country down and mess it up. But if I push the development process, abolish the imperial system, isn't it the same as destroying the former country? Although this road is more difficult, I don't know how many times. But if that doesn't happen in the future, then my orders sounded in Li Tianyuan's ears. Gather the crowd. Let's go back to our former country. But when he heard that the country was in danger of being destroyed, he became extremely nervous. It turned out that at some point, I already have a glimmer of anticipation for this seemingly boring world. Before that, not only did I get the approval of the Dragon Vein, a whole bunch of blueprints for future technologies have also been obtained. With all of this, I couldn't help but have a new thought. To build a nation where everyone is equal. After that, I call everyone back to the imperial capital. On the way, a paper crane slowly flew into Asha's ear. After seeing 1,000 paper cranes, Asha looked surprised. It's a letter from Azu. Is there something wrong with him? I was keenly aware that something was wrong, urging Asha to read the contents of the letter first. Sure enough, Asha showed gold behind the contents of the letter. Nanjing's soldiers invaded the former country. Tu Su led his troops to meet the Jade prisoners. Life and death are uncertain. I chuckled in my heart when I heard this. It's over at the same time. Outside the borders of the former country, one by one, the soldiers in armor have broken through the encirclement. With the help of an escalator, I climbed the tower. Fight with the avant-garde on the castle towers. In suddenness, a broad palm stretched out above the city wall, followed by a strong man with a height of 2.5 meters turned over. See this person? The avant-garde was shocked. He immediately brandished his broad knife and rushed forward. The strong man reached out and took the hammer in his mouth. Then, with a heavy hammer, several people rushed up in front of him and flew away. I was astonished. Admiral Pan Fengxian came to take Tu Su's dog's head. But soon Pan Fengxian's arrogant expression disappeared, and in front of him was a face with an indifferent face. Tu Su, a handsome man in a red cloak. The face is cold. Pan Fengxian sounded like a nameless harlequin. Are you worthy of my head? After the shock, Pan Fengxian smiled wildly and hideously. Is it a harlequin? Try it and find out. The dog thief took his life to face a hammer capable of knocking more than a dozen soldiers away. Tu Su just raised his hand to block the attack. Pan Fengxian was unwilling to swing the weight quickly. But not once can it hurt the butcher. He easily dodged them all. Soon, Pan Fengxian suddenly found that Tu Su in front of him had disappeared. An indifferent voice sounded behind him. I still have expectations for you. It turned out to be just a showcase. Hear this. Pan Fengxian found that she couldn't answer at all. A chill came from his chest. I was defeated. After the soldiers of the Jin kingdom saw that their master was about to be beheaded, suddenly retreated. They retreated under the city walls, until all the enemy troops on the city wall are killed. There was a shout from the city wall from the sage. Go to hell. Jin Guizhu is here. Grandpa hasn't killed enough. But Tu Su's face did not have the slightest joy. Instead, he looked apprehensively outside the walls. The army tent that is out of reach. It turned out that Tu Su, who was sitting in Qianjing 5 days ago, suddenly received a battle report. It is claimed that Nanjing learned that Tu Yi had left Beijing. So he intended to send a small force to infiltrate the territory of the former country, intercept and slaughter the slaughtered leaves. Tu Su took his elite 1,000 cavalry to block the Jin troops. As a result, Fusu was accidentally ambushed and was forced to retreat to a small town near Qianjing to Fufeng. Subsequently, Jin Guobing divided 10,000 to besiege Fufeng. The remaining forces went straight ahead. The besieged Tu Su was with his own remnants and the defenders of the city. Less than 10,000 people. Tough defending, although held several attacks. But soldiers and supplies are slowly running out. What to do next? Obviously, I ascended to the throne of the emperor admired by thousands of people. However, my brother did not turn against me because of this. Instead, thanked me for helping him inherit that hot chair. Even if you were facing a mortal situation, the only thing I was worried about was my stupid brother. But the city he is currently guarding is not optimistic. Even the dozens of tyrannical forces that he secretly sent, they were all intercepted and killed by the enemy. Faced with such a dilemma, his soldiers muttered quietly, "If it weren't for that slaughter night, how could we have been fooled? Trapped here." As his voice fell, the soldiers suddenly felt a fierce killing intent. "Lock yourself." Only then did the soldier react. I accidentally said what was in my heart. Hurriedly knelt down. Pray for Tu Su's forgiveness. Time passed little by little. The soldier's back was also soaked in cold sweat, until Tu Su's voice came. This is not to blame Tu Yi. It was I who ignored the opposition of the people. You have to come here. The combat power of the Jin state is not as good as that of the barbarians of the grassland. But the insidious cunning is still excessive. This time, I actually figured out the movements of Tu Yi and use it as bait. 10 years ago, the first emperor led a large army to the south to attack. But because a strategist in Nanjing returned in vain, I was young, but also no, all because of the southern aristocracy of the former country, colluded with that Jin was strategist. Talon has not succeeded in the great cause of reunification. The admiral known as Hu Mao, Han Being, forbade a pair of tongues. Let those people divide one side at a critical time. A batch of Cinnabar that year. Now another batch has popped up, actually cooperated with the Jin country. Help it get to this point. Otherwise, I don't believe it. An army of 100,000 can sneak under the nose of Qianjin. It must be that Han Bing is playing with people's hearts again. Tease the wall grass. Speaking of which, Tu Su's anger came to an abrupt end. Speaking of playing with people's hearts, in the words of the boy, it's an old. At least the kid is safe for the time being. That's the former country's surname. Come to think of it, tous smiled miserably. I've always been a big believer in strength. I'm most unaccustomed to playing conspiracy and tricks. They believe me, for a while. That spiritual brother will be ambushed by others. Hear, hear. How did the soldiers not understand? Tu Yi is His Highness's only weakness. It was immediately reported to His Highness. Commander Xiao is still by His Majesty's side. There is still a message of him left in the army, and Tu Su understands what he means. Instead, don't mention in your letter that I'm trapped in Fufeng. It is only said that the Jin soldiers are attacking. Let him go back to the front hall. As he spoke, he slammed his fist on the table. Let my brother save me. Where is the face? Obey me alone. Not much. The two of them came to the top of the tower. Let Jin Guogo see the bloody nature of Qian Guanan. Fu Feng Lao Su is to guard it by himself. The soldier felt bad in his heart. Who would have thought? Tu Su smiled at him. Wang Zhan, you must feel that I am arbitrary. I'm going to start going crazy again. Wang Zhan was so hurried that he didn't dare. Tu Su smiled and comforted him. Needless to say, it's not the first time I've done this. It's just that this time the reason is really different. There were 100 unbeliefs in the king's heart. That's what you said last time, but he didn't say this. Tu Su looked into the distance. The kid had a drink alone with me the night before he left. It turned out to be just before I left. I scolded him with wine. He is also worthy of being called the god of war in front of him. I have robbed you of your throne, took your last name. But no matter how vicious I scolded, Tu Su didn't refute it at all, just smiled gently at me. I'm sorry. That promise from many years ago. I thought it was just a joke between you and me. I didn't expect you to actually do it. I looked at her dumbfounded. She explained with a smile. You have known my ambitions and interests since I was a child. If only I had been asked to sit in that position. I'm going to go crazy sooner or later. I yelled at him. You know, it's not easy to sit in that position. You know how tired I have been living since I came into this world. My words caught his attention. Came into the world. You mean you are in the middle of endless intrigues? I didn't answer. Go on. Uncle Zhao Zhao Zhua. Li Tian Yuan. Zhuge killed Fan Peach Pig. And that Xiao. Make your own decisions every time. Each of them was clever enough to interpret my words. And only with idiots like you. I'm going to get drunk. Hear me. Tu Su was stunned for a moment. Then he carried me on his back. But you're willing to make that hot chair for me. Who the hell are you and me, stupid? Obviously the most suitable candidate to become emperor. But he willingly put the emperor's throne in my hands. Nip in the bud all those who prying on my throne. It turned out to be that night. After I got drunk. After Jin Jiang came to this world. The unhappiness in my heart was all spoken. Even pointed at Tu Su's nose and scolded. He's a hopelessly stupid person. I can hear undisguised invective. Tu Su just smiled. Instead, he lifted me on his back. You have taken on my own responsibility. I've been freed from the shackles I've always had. I don't know who the two of us are the idiots. But the younger brother. You should accept your fate and keep the foundation laid by the old man. Your brother and I are only good at fighting. So all I can do is remove all the obstacles in front of you. Stand in front of you and protect you. Back to just now. Tu Su looked into the distance. A month ago, it was about killing all the enemies. A month later, he was besieged by the enemy. Don't you feel ashamed? Wang Chu was shocked in his heart. That story just now. He still underestimated my status in Tu Su's heart. Just kidding. But seriously, Qian Jing's side is indeed more dominant than ours. Wang Chu nodded. Fufeng relies on the soldiers and horses we have at hand. It's not a problem to hold on for a few months. On the contrary, the former money army is ostensibly full of troops. However, it was divided into two divisions, the Jinbei army and the Longxiang army. Although there is strength, the rift between the two armies is a major hidden danger. Yuan Tianshu, the supreme general who stayed behind and advanced. Although this person is a general, but we couldn't stop the Jinbei army we left behind. So, the coordination between the two armies has become a shortcoming. Tu Su is well aware of the importance of this. However, the hidden dangers of the two armies are still a trivial matter. After all, the public will know the bigger hidden dangers. In the court, Wang Zhan was a little puzzled. When His Majesty left, the edict was ordered to supervise the country and decide political affairs. Fan Tao's treasurer was in charge of the city's food supply. Tu Su snorted coldly. I can't trust either of those two women. Only Tu Yana went back to preside over the overall situation in person. In order to re-stabilize the situation, Wang Zhan hesitated, but His Majesty wants to return to Qianjing. There will be a lot of danger. Tu Su smiled slightly. I have faith in him. On the mind. That kid plus Li Tianyuan on combat power. There is Xiao plus Zhuge Qing. It's easy to get back on the move forward with such a combination. Speaking of which, Wang Zhan didn't say much more. Your Highness's considerations. The last general has understood. Then let General Wei help you with this wind. Let Jin Guogo see the bloody nature of the former national boy. Meanwhile, a black eagle streaked across the sky. Suddenly, a chain flew out of the clouds. The chains instantly controlled the Black Hawk. Whoosh! Black Hawk disappeared without a trace. The next moment, Black Hawk appeared in the hands of a black-robed man and fell to the ground. Nanjing dogs surrounded the money. Come back as soon as possible. Stabilize the big picture. Elder brother, trust you to do it. Another man stepped out of the shadows. Xing monkey, do we want to change a piece of false information? Xing Wuxian grinned. It doesn't have to be a big deal. The Lord wants to let Tu Yi know the dilemma. As he spoke, he put the letter back into the mailbox. Tu Yi save Qianjin or save Tu Su? How will you choose? The Lord is more inclined that you will return to the former gold. But I hope you can come back and slaughter Su, because I haven't tasted the Emperor's eyeballs yet. The man's crazy laughter spread through the forest, startled a flock of birds. It's the unlucky guy who somehow ascended to the throne. He is also the greatest emperor in the hearts of his courtiers. But I have a big problem. The life of my brother, who put me on the throne, is in danger. But everybody knows it. When encountering Tu Su, he only worries about his opponent. How could anything be wrong with him? Xiao, who had been following Tu Su all along, also felt inexplicable. Could it be that His Highness really encountered a life-and-death crisis? Immediately, Xiao confirmed to Li Tianyuan. Is this letter from Fan Tao Pig? That guy is one of yours. Li Tianyuan's face changed. Hurriedly said to me, His Majesty's ministers did have the heart to see more in the past. But now it's really for you. However, Asha and I are already devoted to your Majesty. But Aza's mind is not yet. Wait until he's done. I interrupted her impatiently. I've known all your nonsense. I just want to confirm one thing now. Is there anything wrong with that guy Tu Su? At that moment, a crow flew over my head. Xiao Shuai on the side reacted first. This is my messenger for your Highness. Until I saw Tu Su's handwriting. Xiao Kai finally showed joy. This is His Highness's handwriting and code. He's alive, Li Tianyuan said slowly. With the temperament of His Highness. If it was him guarding the former capital, I don't think I will say it. Let your Majesty return quickly to relieve the siege. This kind of talk. Most likely, it is besieged somewhere. And I've finally been sure of one thing. Tu Su is still alive, but it's also in danger. So there is an important problem at the moment. Is it to save Tu Su or return to Qianjing to preside over the overall situation? On the other side at the same time, Dajin's army has already approached the capital. Fan Taozhu walked to the city wall worriedly. He has always been good at calculation, and he can't help but feel that his head is big. Why is this the way it is? It turned out to be just 5 days ago. Tu Su led 1,000 Jinbei Army Iron Cavalry to leave Qianjing quickly. Not long ago, a large number of Nanjing troops soon poured into the outside of the capital. The Nanking army will die on the road leading to the surrounding area. But they were not in a hurry to attack the city. Rather, they threw into the city a large number of herald arrows bound to the letters. The recommendation letter states that Tu Yi has been captured by the Jin army in an ambush when Tu Su led his troops to the rescue. Death on the battlefield. This also made the people of Qianjing panic when they learned the news. A cloud of unease gradually enveloped the court and the people. The courtiers also had their own thoughts. Many people are thinking about how to take advantage of the chaos. Maximize your own interests. And in this situation, in charge of the treasury, Fan Taozhu, who is responsible for the logistics supply of the entire former capital, caught in a dilemma. Come to think of it, Zhu couldn't help but think of Li Tinyuan's ambition. Ming Ming has always wanted to seize the authority of the Tu clan. Let the country of money be defeated. But now success is on the horizon. You've changed. Even Asha has changed. Now I'm the only one left. That's when it happened. Uncle Zhao also came to the city tower. What is my sister doing here? Thinking so intently, Asha broke out in a cold sweat. But he soon calmed down. Now the siege of Nanjing has cut off the supply routes inside and outside the city. Sister, I'm worried about the situation. So go up to the city and watch the Taoist priests. My sister is obviously burdened with a heavy responsibility. At this moment, he should be too busy in the palace to get out. Why are you here? Uncle Zhao was stunned for a moment. Apparently, I didn't expect him to ask that. Then he looked out at the barracks outside the city. I am also my sister who came to watch the situation in Nanjing outside the city. Do you believe those words written by the Nanjing army in the sword book? His Majesty was captured by them. Millions of troops descended on the city. Countless traders have worked finely. I want to come out and get a piece of the pie. But despite the near-hopeless predicament, Uncle Zhao chose without hesitation. Be on my side. Fight for me. Not so long ago, the edict came to the tower. Tempted Fan Taozhu's thoughts. Do you believe those words written by the Nanjing army in the sword book? His Majesty was captured by them. Fan Taozhu knew that this was a temptation of the edict to him. Said the answer that had been prepared a long time ago. Of course I don't believe it. What His Majesty has done over the past few months. It's obvious to all. Thoughtful and difficult to see. Even Zhao was stepped on His Majesty's hands. Let his power tilt towards the opposition. Because of the cruelty and tyranny of His Majesty. But the man of heaven. However, these are not the answers that Uncle Zhao wants. Is it just a person who mutters the divine grace? As it was a little nervous. His Majesty has Lord Li and Asha by his side. Yuan Wu has been secretly following him. Plus Xiao, who is good at repulsion of news. I don't think he's going to miss out. Hear this answer again. Uncle Zhao's eyes lit up. My sister was the same as I thought. I don't think His Highness Tu Su will be ambushed and killed. His Royal Highness Tu Su is known as the God of War. It's not for nothing. How can such a character easily die on the battlefield? If they really killed His Highness Tu Su, just put his head on display outside the city. The morale of the defenders in the former capital was bound to collapse. Surrender without a fight. Why bother like now? Uncle Zhao's analysis. Let Azu have a new understanding of him. I thought he was just relying on his body to take a fancy to him on the night of being slaughtered. Now it seems his scheming and analytical skills should not be underestimated. He continued with the edict. Your Majesty and Your Highness are safe and sound. But they were all cut off from the army. Whether the former scripture can be kept as the foundation of the Great Front. The key lies with those of us who are left behind. And now the big question is, do you want to hold on? As soon as this statement came out, Asa couldn't help but feel a chill on his back. It's as if all the minds are discerned. Then a loud laugh interrupted their conversation. The two of them don't have to pull and test each other anymore. We're all in the same boat. Secretly leave a secret letter. It was the two who invited the two to come here to discuss important matters. Hereby, on behalf of the Kingdom of Qin, the Edict of Surrender to the two is hereby submitted. Directly revealed his identity. Feng Tao is a nobody in the court. Zhu Xiang was a rebel general of the Qin state. Why is it that now that the money country is in trouble, it forgets the kindness of the former country? Busy recognizing their ancestors and returning to their ancestors. Feng Tao's face turned dark. Something interrupted him. These words need not be said again. Below is Fan Tao Pig, who represents the Qin kingdom and gives the two of them a chance. You want to avenge the Fan family. Restore the glory of the family. As for you, Uncle Zhao, don't you want a new beginning? Uncle Zhao asked him rhetorically. What does this mean? You used to be Zhuge's person. These are the things that many people in the court know about you. I'm afraid even he knows a little bit about it. He pampers you now, push you to the position of the prison state. But your past is always a thorn in his heart. Only let him disappear forever. The thorn will disappear. That's why you want us to give the money to the people outside the city. Your Excellency is truly discerning. No one will remember your past after it happens. But before he could finish what he was going to say, a thin line ran down his throat. Bright red blood gushed out. Why the descendants of the Kingdom of Qin? What reason do you have to refuse? Zhao Shu looked indifferently at the hairpin in his hand. Because all of you get one thing fundamentally wrong. Tu Yi is no ordinary man to me. Slaughter the night, he is my king. The only man I was talking about tucking his hairpin into her temple. He has also been in the palace since birth. Thought that what awaited her was endless glory and wealth. But in the end, he fell into the abyss of endless darkness. On the day he entered the rite of passage, he was greeted by the jealous whipping of his grandmother. This was followed by hateful insults from women. You stupid. It's not even good to talk about that. What's the use of Lord Zhao raising you? But just when he was ready to keep fighting, Zhao's cold eyes shocked his heart. It turned out to be Lord Zhao. Lao Shan is training this group of... You see Uncle Zhao looking at Zhao expectantly. Qian. What was waiting for was Zhao's cold words. I said I wasn't allowed to slap my face. Then I heard the old slave's cry for mercy. However, Zhao didn't seem to hear it. Said to himself, they're worth a lot more than you. After speaking, he reached out and grabbed Uncle Zhao's head. Found that Uncle Zhao did not ruin his appearance because of this. Smiled coldly. It's okay. Then Zhao pressed his head. Into hell. Until Zhao left the room. Only then did Eru dare to come up. I care about whether Uncle Zhao hurts or not. Practice this every day. Then you have to be beaten. I've had enough. Uncle Zhao's eyes were dark. Be content. If it weren't for the father-in-law. We died a long time ago. Miao suddenly came over. There was still a little joy on his cheeks. I have something to tell you. I'll be out of this place in a moment. My father-in-law sent me to the house of a young marquis. I don't think I'll suffer when I get there. I can also send you a gift then. A faint smile rose at the corner of Uncle Zhao's mouth. It seems to be gratified by his future. A few months later, Eru hurriedly searched for the edict. Until after seeing the edict, the tears in the corners of the eyes could no longer be hidden. The voice choked. Uncle, I've been looking for you for a long time. Miao. Uncle Zhao was stunned in his heart, and a bad thought came to his heart. Soon after, Uncle Zhao really saw the cold corpse naked. The maid behind him whispered, I heard that the little marquis of the house where Miao was a madman. The woman who followed him did not live for 3 months. There's no good place in the whole body. It's miserable. The other side. The eunuch beside Zhao whispered, My lord, let's hurry up and dispose of the corpse. Zhao's face was disdainful. What's the hurry? Let them know what it's like to know that the tool isn't working. You're not scared. I'm afraid they can turn the sky upside down. Without me, they are nothing. Wait until everyone is gone. Aru slammed into the wall in anger. Miao just died. We've been training for so long. Is that for this? Uncle Zhao's tone was a little indifferent. At least we're alive now. Aru gritted her teeth. I'm not reconciled. I'm going to find a way out in my own way. After that, another 3 years passed. It's the same as before. At Zhao's feet lay a cold corpse. Uncle Zhao was seeing the familiar figure. My heart is like falling into an ice cellar. She knew it was her only sister here, Aru. At this time, Zhao suddenly spoke. Do you know why I called you here? Aru is a slut. I just gave him to Qian Shanshu a year ago. He betrayed me. Fortunately, Mr. Qian understands the sophistication of human feelings. He said he wanted to return the woman. I'll just say you can keep it. Do you still want me to discipline your own woman? He was afraid that he would be excluded by me in the court. So that's it. She didn't say any more. Instead, he moved his foot to the side in disgust. Then his unbridled laughter rang out in the room. This moment, Uncle Zhao's heart was like ashes. Zhao walked in front of him. Uncle Zhao, I value you the most. You don't want to eat the inside and the outside, do you? Uncle Zhao's voice was calm. Sure has only gratitude. Never dare to betray. Ah, yes. Although I can't bear you. But it's also your turn to get out of the house. I'm going to give you to the most famous loser in the country. What do you think? Satisfied? As the picture reverses frame by frame, Zhao's picture was finally frozen at the moment of his death. Thinking of the man in my heart, Uncle Zhao blurted out, I'm very happy with him. On one side is the former kingdom that was under the city by millions of troops. On one side are my siblings who are related by blood. No matter which side you choose, the other side could fall. But I didn't choose either. Single-handed, choose to march into the enemy's lair. Not so long ago, Uncle Zhao stabbed Feng Tao with a hairpin. Tui is not so simple for me to rely on. He is my king. The scorching blood instantly woke Feng Tao up. What are you crazy about? The only man is actually for a loser. Rejected the Lord's opportunity. As he spoke, he reached out and pulled out the hairpin on his head. Then he pounced on the edict like crazy. Damn woman, I'll kill you right now. Don't forget, I have other options. Then he shouted loudly to Fan Taozhu behind him. Come and help me deal with this slut. He was the son of a shrewd merchant. I'm sure he'll make the right choice. Suddenly, a piece of talisman paper was pasted on Feng Tao's forehead. It's just that in an instant, a fiery red flame ignited from Feng Tao's body. Terrible screams immediately after the ringing. Just a few minutes later, Feng Tao also completely turned into a human form. Talk. Aju was also a little scared at this time. I thought that the blessings Asha gave me were only for fixing people. Ordinary service. How so? Uncle Zhao smiled at him. Why did you help me just now? You must know that the Tu clan is the murderer of your clan. If just now you chose him, you can get a good chance of revenge. So I want to know what the hell you're up to. Azu joked with a smile. Is this your attitude towards your lifesaver? Uncle Zhao's eyes lowered slightly. Apologized to Aju. My past experiences have made me suspicious by nature. Besides, you are still guilty. Azu shook his head. I did. You probably don't believe it either. Then he took out a silver ingot from his bosom. Because it was a loss-making deal for me. Our Fan family was in the heyday of big money. However, he held a share of 30% of the coinage of the big money. At that time, every 3 ingots of silver were engraved with a dealer. But they were all wiped out because of Tu Qinjuan's old thief. But even so, the trading system built by the Fan family is still being implemented. This is the root of the Fan family's burying in big money. It is impossible for me to hand over this land where the roots of the Fan family are buried to outsiders. Revenge like a dead man. Maybe it will make me angry. But in the end, it is estimated that there is nothing left behind by the Fan family. As a businessman, what I want is more silver engraved with the Fan family. My grandfather once said, businessmen should be in control of their emotions. Not for a moment. Anticipate the big picture. Don't you think these descriptions fit a person very well? Although I don't like Tu Yi. But he has something in common with the Fan family. Can help me achieve the purpose of reviving the Fan family. Let Qian Guo pay attention to business again. So I'm willing to put the future on Tu Yi. In Tu Ye's words, it's called investing. Uncle Zhao held the heavy silver ingot in his hand. The corners of his mouth are slightly raised. Yes, Your Majesty often says things that others don't understand. Although it is a one-sided statement. But for now, the only one I can trust is you. Just to be on the safe side, though, I will spread the word about your killing of Feng Tao. Let Jin Guo be afraid. Wait for His Majesty to return. I will give him the money. Now I'm stable. And then with your support, it should be able to withstand His Majesty's return. But that's just a trade-off. After that, I'm afraid that mini Feng Tao will jump out soon. Only His Majesty's wisdom plus Tu Su's combat power. It is possible to solve the siege of Tianjin. Otherwise, even if you and I fight for our lives, it will only be a matter of time before we fall. Suddenly, Asa bit his finger. Reach out and write on a blank piece of paper. Nanjing's soldiers invaded the former country. Tu Su led his troops to meet Yufu. Life and death are uncertain. The edict immediately explained. This is my means of contact with Asha. If you contact Asha, you can contact Tu Yi. Uncle Zhao was a little surprised when he heard this. You downplay the pre-gold crisis. Don't you want him to be distracted? Didn't you say that? Let Tu Yi go to Tu Su first. Uncle Zhao was stunned when he heard this. So, I'm afraid it's even more difficult. Azu suddenly laughed. It's not that you're scared. The corners of Uncle Zhao's mouth raised slightly. Are you afraid? Nothing to be afraid of. Because we will be able to wait until His Majesty returns. Meanwhile, outside the former capital, Han Bing looked at the secret letter from the inside. There was a bit of banter at the corners of his mouth. Sent a chess piece to get to the bottom of it. As a result, he died before he could do anything. But I know that the opponent is those two women. Everything is still being planned. Just wait for Tu Yi to make his choice. And on the other side, I'm still struggling with which side to rescue first. Not much. I stopped suddenly. Those guys actually stole my home while I wasn't there. Why don't I steal their high ground in turn? Just when everyone is still thinking about what is high and low. Aina shouted with joy. Steal the high ground. You're saying I'm telling him that's right. I don't have any soldiers or food, and it doesn't make much sense to go. So I'm going to cross the river and go straight to the Jin Empire. Millions of soldiers have arrived in the city. The Emperor, are thousands of miles away. And when I learned everything, I didn't plan to go back. I also planned to go directly to steal the enemy's hometown. Suddenly, a female voice of praise came from the woods. Courageous. He really deserves to be the man I fancied. Wu Dongxian smiled lightly as he walked. I was just dealing with this traitor. Got a little bit of information. I'll stop by to remind you. But it depends on the way you guys. It seems that he already knows about the former Jin siege of Jin. As he spoke, he looked at Aina with a slight squint. It seems that this young lady knew about this a long time ago. It seems that you didn't tell anything. Tire. Hear the words. Aina explained to me in a bit of a panic. You don't care about such trivial things, do you? You've said that before. I can backstab you. You won't be able to afford to play. Wu Dongxian interrupted him. Let me start with that. It may not be easy to cross the river, because the key line has been occupied by the Jin state. Yuqing was an important town in the southern part of the former country. Soldiers are on the banks of the Murong River. As a strategic location, it stood between the borders of the two countries for 10 years. Even during the rebellion of Emperor Qinyuan's southern expedition, he still ensured the smooth withdrawal of Emperor Qinyuan. I immediately understood what he meant. In other words, such an important place belongs to the Jin kingdom. Wu Dongxian did not continue to explain. Instead, he waved his hand and walked in the opposite direction. He shouted at me as he left. You owe me a favor again. I remember that after I finished speaking, I reintroduced the forest. At this time, Li Tianyuan took the initiative to say, General, when guarding Lu Qing, not only is the situation very serious, and he is loyal to the country of money, there is him choking the throat. It is impossible for Lu Qing to lose the ferry. Xiao retorted directly, General, Wen is very old, and his son is a complete loser. Moreover, Wen Bianian once traveled to Nanjing for several years in the name of visiting teachers. There is no progress in learning, but it has become extremely respectful of Nanjing customs. He has repeatedly called Qian barbaric and tyrannical in private. General, Wen also has no way to take this son. That's according to your intelligence. This Wenbei year is likely to become a breakthrough for Lu Qing. Come to think of it, Li Tianyuan's face became ugly. Qianjin was besieged and slaughtered. Su is trapped. Plus, if Lu Qing is lost, Qiangua is afraid that I am barehanded. Interrupted their conversation. The plan to cross the river remained unchanged. As long as you get rid of that loser in Lu Qing, I can't know more about the loser. Just the right professional counterpart. Aina smiled and walked in the opposite direction. Refuel yourself for the great events of your former country. I'll meet you later. I stepped forward and grabbed his head. How can such an important thing be missing you? Maybe I'll need to use you for this trip. Meanwhile, in the dungeon deep in Lu Qing, Wen Bianian looked at the man in front of him and smiled playfully. It's been so many days. Haven't deflated yet? Admiral Han promised me, as long as they take the money, this Qian area will belong to our family. I can only grieve you before this. Men have some hatred for iron and steel, and fools. You believe the fox's words. You're a loser. You can hear this. When Bianian laughed wildly. Then he flipped the food in front of him. Do you just look down on me like that? What is your loyalty to the dead emperor in return? Mingming guards the richest land in the country, but it was isolated by the wealthy families here. Even your son has no light on his face. Look at the overturned leftovers. When Bianian suddenly had a better idea. Pick up dirt-stained leftovers from the ground. Took it. Let's have some food. Otherwise, the old bones can't bear it. But the man remained indifferent. One's lips are sealed. When Bianian sneered and left. Going on a hunger strike with me won't work. Suddenly, the sound of swallowing and chewing sounded in the back. When I saw the man picking up steamed buns and eating, Wen Bianian was also a little surprised. It's really delicious. The man smiled coldly. Lao Tzu had a dream last night. In my dream, His Majesty will come to Lu Qing in person. Complete the unfinished business of the first emperor. You, my son, I want to keep this life. See that day with your own eyes. When Bianian suddenly thought of a person slaughtering the night. Then he burst out laughing. Daddy, are you old and confused? Are you talking about that waste butcher? Qian quickly rectify the court after the death of the first emperor. Subsequently, in addition to Zhao Zhuo, Li Tianyuan, and Tu Su were encircled. You actually think he's a piece of rubbish. So stupid. It's your dad who raised you. Hear the man's sigh of self-reproach. When Bei's young lips trembled, the words were full of anger. It seems that I need to prove my father to you. This place has long been laid by Admiral Han. Flies can't fly in. I wish that kid could be in front of me, and then let you know what constitutes waste. Suddenly, a clanging sound sounded outside the cell. When Bianian, who heard the voice, looked back. The next moment he saw the waste in his mouth. My eyes were like arrows at this idiot who was speaking ill of me behind his back. I heard you were looking for me. As an emperor, I voluntarily revealed my identity for the first time. It attracted the assassination of the most terrible shadow army in the Jin country. But even in the face of such a desperate situation, I still have a confident smile on my face. Small, have you ever seen the charm of a gun? Not so long ago, I crossed the river and came to Lu Qing. In the dungeon, I saw this second generation of the backstabbing of his own Lao Tzu. At the moment of seeing me, General Wen couldn't help but shout excitedly. His Majesty Wen Banyan's eyes were full of horror. No way how you got in. I couldn't help but smile contemptuously. You're trying to say. It's clearly heavily guarded outside. As I spoke, I lifted Aina in my hand. There's this guy in what guards are all papier-mâché. It's just a bit overused. Then I raised an eyebrow at him defiantly. Let's get back to business. What do you really want to do? Hear me. When Banyan felt a little choked, but soon he adjusted, shouted at me. Before he could say anything, a long knife pierced his heart. Saw the tragic condition of his own son. General Wen was instantly moved. Trembling shouted. Banyan when Banyan took his last breath and looked behind him. Why did Admiral Han Ming Duan in sneer? Drew the blade. None of his eyes lingered on him. Meanwhile, Xiao and Asha, who sensed that something was wrong, also rushed over. Suddenly, the shadows on the side began to surge. 2 soldiers in armor stopped in front of them. Xiao said in disbelief, "Emerge from the shadows. You are the undercurrent camp of the Golden Kingdom." The next moment, several people looked at me with interest. Han Dudu planned in advance. There is a 50% chance that you will go to the rescue of Tu Su. 40% likely to go back and move forward. Another trip is to come to me. I didn't expect me to be so lucky. Got me waiting. But I didn't bother to talk to him, turning his head to look at Xiao Hiasha. After confirming that they couldn't support me, I glanced at Aina, who was pointing at me with the middle finger on the side. Then I looked at Duan Ing. I didn't expect someone to force me to do it myself. Duan Ing snorted coldly. Don't babble. We all know your information. It's hard to kill a chicken. I'm a little funny. Do you really think so? The next moment, I unfolded the imperial aura that I had obtained not long ago. Duan Ing was a little funny, blocking my ability to sneak into the shadows by illuminating the entire cell. You can think of this after just watching it once. But you think it's such a boring ability. Would it make all the difference? The next moment, a thud sounded. Duan Yin's long swish flew out. Duan Yin looked at his arm in disbelief. But it's empty. He didn't understand what had just happened. But I saw me looking at him playfully with the instrument of equality of all beings. But I wasn't excited, because I know the gun in my hand still can't be compared to the real gun. After all, it was rubbed out casually on the Asha Road. It's just that the crosshairs are a little worse. Didn't hit the end. Listen to my own words. Drops of cold sweat continued to flow down Duan Ying's forehead. But soon he regained his composure. Cognition, since ancient times, made him feel. It doesn't matter what the secret weapon is. As long as it is within 7 steps, there is no knife fast. The next moment, he resolutely raised his hand and rushed again. Shouted in his heart, "For glory and wealth. I sure can." However, I just pulled the trigger unhurriedly. Bang! Duan Ing was knocked out by the powerful impact. I'm a little funny. Originally, you were hiding in the distance. I'm still a little unsure. But you took the initiative to send it to the door. Then I looked back at Silly. You've done a great job this time. I'll give you a good look at it when I get back. Hear me. Asha scratched his head embarrassedly. It's all thanks to the book given by His Majesty. Asha did not dare to be greedy. The subdued Dark Guard looked at the dead captain in disbelief. Xiao opened his mouth to remind Asha to stay alive and so on. Spying on intelligence. Who knew that the secret guard directly committed suicide by taking poison? Although Xiao noticed his small movements for the first time, but it still can't be stopped. Before dying, the man shouted unwillingly, Han Dudu will not let you go for the next moment. 2 black shadows vanished from their bodies. After that, General Wen untied. But he always stared at his son's corpse. Li Tianyuan saw this. I was just about to open my mouth to comfort something. Was ruthlessly interrupted by General Wen. Needless to say, even if the people of Jingguo don't do it, I'll clean up the portal as well." Then he asked, "What I'm going to do next?" I didn't talk nonsense with him. Directly asked how many soldiers in Lujiang City could be dispatched now. General Wen lowered his head in some shame. Eventually, all my men were killed, but soon he seemed to have caught something. Loud voice. "There is also a thorny captain who disobeys discipline." After the incident, with about 1,000 people, he fled outside the city. I raised an eyebrow. Disobedience to discipline and the thorny captain. He turned his head to look back at the mountain. They should be hiding on the nearby Yongtu mountain. They have no military discipline. The people of Qian didn't take them seriously, so it should be alive now, too. Hearing this, I touched my chin with some excitement. That's not what happened to be my capital to go to Jinghua. He is the most sloppy emperor since ancient times. Even though I know that my kingdom is overwhelmed, but I didn't have the slightest intention of going back. Even with 6 people, he was ready to take down the Qian kingdom. But I'm not going to die in vain. Instead, they went to the back mountains not far away to find the 1,000 soldiers who had defected. Walk on the road. General Wen hesitated for a moment. I finally couldn't help but speak. "Your Majesty, I have a word. Must be informed. Hu Luguang. Originally, it was a homeless person who fled here on the other side. Bravery. He's especially good at riding and shooting. It is very prestigious among the scholars. I appreciate its force. Recruit him to his command." But it turned out that this person was not very useful. So when the mutiny in the city came, the man didn't put up much resistance, and they fled out of the city. It should have the meaning of occupying the mountain as the king. Hear this. I wasn't too disappointed. I just think it's human nature. After all, there are not many people who can die heroically. General Wen looked at me and wondered. Hu Luguang has no loyalty to big money. His Majesty really relied on him to counterattack Nanjing. I asked him rhetorically, could it be that I have another choice now? And at the time of the Lujiang mutiny, he can obviously take refuge in Nanjing, but they don't help each other. Do you know why? Li Tianyuan guessed. It should be waiting for a big money or Nanjing's offer to surrender voluntarily. It is equivalent to giving it to Nanjing for nothing. I nodded approvingly. Therefore, the human heart is the most unreliable. For example, each of you has been stabbed, but now I can walk side by side. So I don't expect unconditional loyalty. I'll just put the price on it. In this way, everyone can rest assured. At this time, General Wen pointed ahead and said, "We're here." Look in the direction of his finger. The outline of a watchtower can be faintly seen. Suddenly, an arrow slashed through the sky, landed precisely in front of my horse. A shout rang out from the tower. "Go further. It's your head that shoots." And I didn't look like I was answering. But it made the soldiers on the watchtower feel a burst of pride. The eldest brother has sharp swordsmanship. Gave the spearhead emperor a dismount. Hu Luguang said leisurely, "I heard that the little emperor saved Lao Wu with only 6 people. There should be 2 brushes. But that wasn't enough for me to die for him. You see him standing there for a long time. That is, the level at which I was suppressed with a sword. But soon his eyes were full of doubt. What does he do with an iron rod?" The next moment, a gunshot rang out. A beam of light swept across Hu's green cheek. Hu Luguang, who realized it later, looked behind him with palpitations, only to find that the pillar behind him had broken. I blew on the smoke from the barrel. There is Asha hand rubbing Big Sniper, plus the special effects of my Overlord aura. It's really full. It didn't take long. Hu Luguang galloped on horseback. As soon as we met, I hurriedly knelt down and explained. I just didn't know Tarzan. Didn't recognize me as your Majesty. Looking at her in a panic. Instead, I walked up to him and lifted her up. I still like your unruly look. But when you get off the mirror and see his face clearly. But it made me feel in a trance. Isn't this the 5th year? Hu Luguang was a little confused. I shook my head and told him, "It's nothing. I just remembered an old man. Do you know what I'm here for?" He hurriedly explained. The city of Lujiang was sandwiched between Nanjing and the rebels. A lonely city. I can't keep it if I want to. I know you don't have to worry about Lujiang after you can't hold it. Nanjing should win the hearts and minds of the people. It is estimated that it will not embarrass the people. Hear me say that. Huluguang was a little confused. Then what is your majesty looking for me? It can't be that I take these old and sick with me. Let's go north to relieve the former Jin's position. I didn't answer him. Instead, he continued to ask, I heard that you used to be in exile in Nanjing. Flee here. There must be some unavoidable hardship. Huluguang became even more dazed. Does that have anything to do with what we're talking about now? I reached out and patted him on the shoulder. Do you want to go back to your hometown? Huluguang suddenly realized. You want me to lead the troops and go with you to the other side. I told him it was right. You and I really have a heart-to-heart relationship. Hearts and minds. The army of Jin came out in unison. It is to be small and big. It's a good opportunity to enter at a low level. But even if the country of Jin is empty. But my strength is too dangerous. Isn't your dog dangerous in the mountains? Isn't it all a matter of fire for you to break the barracks and walls? The soldiers are also disgraced. Ragged clothes, not even weapons. Decent enemies are coming. Are you going to make the other side laugh to death? I don't think I can grow enough food and grass for myself. I see that the ice on the head of your city will be blown away by the wind. That's the configuration for pitchers. Under my one-meal output, Huluguang was also a little overwhelmed. Suddenly something occurred to him. Yelled, but I'm born with divine powers. If you don't believe it, ask Wen Yuan. How good Lao Tzu can fight. Defend the hill. That's a. The mixed mountains should talk about power. Talk about the background. You can hit a fart. It's not you're awesome that you've lived until now. It's that you're not a threat and you're worthless. My words pierced his heart deeply. But he still wasn't fooled. Means even so, they won't cross the river with me to die. I flicked my sleeves and turned. Said indifferently. When I left Lujiang. It's a lot of fanfare. Almost everyone in Lujiang knows that I came up the mountain to find you. Guess what those wealthy aristocrats would think? They'll see you as a danger to me, as a danger to me. And when they feel that you have taken refuge in the faint king, you'd better really take refuge in Huluguang, no matter how stupid you are. At this time I also reacted. Your special mothers. Wen Yuan persuaded him. Your Majesty General Hu. Wen Taowu strategy. If you follow him, you won't bury your martial arts. We got a lot of armor and forage. If you don't take it back, I may not even be happy for half a day. Just when Huluguang was still hesitating, the sound of horses' hooves disturbed him. Huluguang saw that the person who came turned out to be a scout sent by himself. The man looked horrified, carrying the Shao family's Qian. The Deng family had just sent troops to occupy the Lujiang River. Now they are divided into troops. 3,000 people were coming at us. I pouted. It seems that they are going to use you to make meritorious contributions in front of the people of Jinghua. If you want to live, just hold on to this wave for big money.